Hey guys, it's Coffee. I'm playing a bit of Amethyst Steel on Pixelborn. I'm still playing with set 3 cards, but I'm playing against a bunch of set 4 cards. I'm still just trying to get in some last minute pseudo testing for Atlanta since I'm going. Once I'm done, I'll probably hop full board into set 4 and get some videos out for that. But to start us off, we're facing Emerald Steel. Now I'm going second, so what I'm really prioritizing is getting my early curve, getting Pinocchios and smashes to try and stop Ursula's, because that's the biggest threat into stopping this deck from playing. You can see he starts off with the Diablo, and I started off with a Robin Hood. My hand's looking okay. I have the Pinocchio like I said I wanted, so my game plan's probably going to be getting out a Snake turn 2, just that way I can have the Pinocchio for the Ursula if needed. You can see Inks of Pegasus. These are all new cards, and some of them, it's my first time seeing them. I know about the 3-drop Diablo, that's the Floodborn, but this 1-drop Diablo is something new, and I didn't know it could just look at my hand. You can see I drew a Smash, though, which is really good. It makes my hand really, really strong, and especially for going second. I'll probably be in a very, very solid position. I really do like this deck going into Green Steel, so if the deck stays really, if Green Steel stays as one of the strongest decks, I'd really be a big fan of this one. I'd probably throw in a few Let the Storm Rages on, just because I'm not playing them right now. There's not too many 2 health cards that I really need to worry about in the meta, but if Diablo's a factor to consider, it definitely might be something to throw in. But you can see they didn't get an Ursula down, so I actually throw down a Benja, believe it or not. It's just the best 3-drop I had at the time. It's not getting any value, but it's better than hard casting the friends. And the reason I'm not getting rid of the songs right now, even though they could have an Ursula, is because I have 2 of them. I can't get rid of the Zeus very easily, so next turn, what the play might be to do is to sing the friends and hardcast the Zeus just to empty out my hand of songs. But what I find is typically the best thing to do, if I have just a friends, I'll typically ink it against Emerald. But if I have another song on top of it, I'll keep the friends just to save that other song. Because typically what they end up doing is going after my friends on the other side, but the, say in this case, Zeus ends up becoming very valuable against anything. It could even just zap a Flynn just to get rid of it. But you can see here he sudden chills me, so there's a decent thinking, but I get rid of the song just because it was the only one that I had, and I can actually just sing the song here. I don't need to ink it. But with the second one coming up, it's a choice to ink it. He hasn't Ursula'd me though, and I'm really far ahead, so keeping the song doesn't harm me that much. I can easily just take out the Flynn. Oh, and here I do discard the friends. That's just the plan all along, I guess. And he had an Ursula, which was interesting. But he plays down a beast. There's a few options here. I can Pinocchio it and hit a few things into it. I can smash it. I'm really trying to play more of a control oriented, even though I'm already up so far in cards. The beast is really the way he gets back into the game, so I just want to nip it in the bud. But let's see what I do here. I think for a little bit just because it is a big thing to do. Comment down below and tell me what play you'd go for, but I don't think there's an incorrect decision. We'll just see how it plays out. Alright, so I ended up opting to go for the Pinocchio and crashing my rabbit, just because what I like to do personally is always see what draws I can get to better enable my plays in the future. So you can see here I went for a lot of draws, found a Yzma that I don't really think I'll be dropping that much. I'll go the Snake into the Beast as well, just to make sure that I'm taking it out and he can't go Beast into the Benja to live another turn. And you can see I had the option to smash last turn. I did have the 3 ink, but I don't need to be perfectly ink efficient at this point. And you can see here I'm actually doing math a little bit poorly. I was thinking that I'd be able to rabbit and smash in the same turn, and luckily I caught myself before that happened. I can just go Smee and smash, and now I'm just in a really, really strong position. I still have the Pinocchio for whatever they want to throw out, and I'm just in a really, really strong position. They end up storming my Smee, so I probably won't be questing with it for a little bit until it's time to push for game. And they actually put down a Lyle. I have not seen this card up until this point. I know it's a set 3 card, but it's a very spicy option. I don't know how great it'll be for this set. Maybe a little better because I feel like Evasive's got a little bit stronger with, especially in green, with Pegasus and the new Diablo. But forcing me to attack with Benja doesn't really matter that much. Sure, I lose a lore because of the Lyle, and I actually opt to quest with the Pinocchio here. I have a second one in hand, and if they want to go Lyle into the Pinocchio, I'll be able to go Smee into the Lyle. Whereas the Benja can just live. Benja actually dies because of the storm, but they don't even quest with the Lyle because it's just free value for my Smee to hit in. I would be able to go Smee and Robin Hood in. But you can see I'm just flooding the board. I'm already so far ahead. Robin Hood's really, really strong in this matchup, so it really just put me so far ahead. They hypnotize me. It really doesn't matter what I discard at this point. I'm just in a winning position, and we're just going through the motions for the rest of the game. I actually see a third Pinocchio. I added in the third Pinocchio recently into the deck just because of how strong it is with things like Robin Hood and Fox. It makes going second into Emerald really a lot better. The Emerald matchup is probably the scariest deck to go into going second, so I really built my deck to try and help that going second matchup. You can see I have enough lore to win next turn, so just waiting for my opponent to pass, and we'll just close it out from there. And we can just quest away. Give my opponent the well played, and we'll go on to the next game. Alright, on to game 2. I'm up against Mufasa. It's an interesting matchup and a lot of set 4 cards. I didn't get to play it too much in set 3, just because there's no one in my area who really played it, and I wasn't playing on Pixelborn that much early on in this set. But the matchup's actually very interesting with a lot of set 4 cards. Mulan specifically makes it a lot slower of a match. I end up, just because I choose not to quest a lot of the time just to prevent the Mulan from coming down. And what's funny is the 1-drop Mulan actually can bait out a lot of spells just because I don't want to use them. I don't want Mulan coming down, so I want to use them on the 1-drop Mulan and stop that shift just because that extra attack it gains. And you'll see them ink one soon, so if you need to read it, it'll be coming up. But they're also playing Fazao. I think that's how you say it. Very interesting. I'm not good with foreign names. But see, they ink the 6-drop Mulan, and they actually Teeth and Ambitions my Robin Hood. So I'm not able to save and shift in my Robin Hood. It is okay, though, since Shift Robin Hood isn't the greatest in this matchup. Medusas are really tough against it. So you can see I just dropped my Crab. I prefer dropping the Crab over the Fox, and I think just dropping the Crab by itself is underrated a lot of times, even in both this deck and Ruby Amethyst, just because that 3/3 body turn 3 actually can carry a lot of weight. You can see they drop their Mulan, not the shift one, but just a rush one. Interesting thing to play. But at least here I can just drop the rabbit, and you'll notice that I opt not to quest with the Merlin just to play around that Mulan shift, just because right now what I need to do is we're both pretty somewhat even in cards, but I have the rabbit on board, which is an advantage, and if I can get one bounce off on this rabbit, it'll put me really far ahead in cards, so that's what my game plan is. And you can see, since I'm going to be protecting my rabbit by bouncing it, I can now quest with my crab, and I can also sing Zeus with my rabbit to take out that Mulan. This really helps me, and you can see they're down to 2 cards. I bounce the rabbit. I'm super far ahead. The only way they can really get back in is with a Rapunzel on some damaged character. The queen actually was a very good draw. The queen prevents me from doing any sorts of questing just because she'll just sit there, and I don't actually have. I'd prefer to drop the rabbit and wait a turn to quest just so I can sing that Zeus again and get even farther ahead with my draws. I also dropped the hook just to try and attack, just to force out the queen if they choose to quest. And this puts them in a scenario where they couldn't quest, but so when I saw them quest, I was like, oh man, they're not really playing this right. But then they drop a LeFou, which readies up their queen, which interesting tech as well. I really only saw that card before in aggro decks, but here I can just go Rabbit, Sing Zeus, and they're just way far down in cards. Typically, Castle isn't great against Ruby because of Maui, but I can just throw it down because they're so low in cards, and it'll just get me the remainder of the fuel I need to quickly finish the game and really, really solidify the advantage. And you can see I didn't move the rabbit into the castle just because that was the only thing that Rhea could attack that didn't have the Rhea get banished as well. So here they actually go LeFou to re-ready the Rhea. Again, you can see they had the Mulan the whole time, so it was really, really nice that I played it the way I did. But the Rhea just attacks, gains a lore because she was damaged, but you can see here they just have two LeFous against my whole entire hand. Game's lights out, and they scoop it up. On to the next game, I'm going against Hyper Aggro. Again, the reason I love Amethyst Steel is just because it's really, really solid into Hyper Aggro. Steel has always been, and what you'll notice about my build is I actually don't play any grab your swords or anything. You really just don't need it. You can see I have Robin Hood and Shift Robin Hood along with a Smee. That's all what you need for this matchup. Like, once you get those two down, you'll just auto win, basically. They won't be able to keep up. You'll keep up in lore, but stay up in board presence, and then just outpace them and grind them down. You can see I drew a second crab, so the rest of my hand really doesn't matter. I'm just focusing on that Robin Hood Smee game plan, just gaining lore faster than my opponent. And this game is a going first example, but it works the same way going second. It really, really is just, in my opinion, a pretty free matchup. I've played this matchup all throughout set 3, and I hardly dropped a game to it. It was a really, really challenge to even find a way to drop a game. As long as you're mulleting correctly and just trying to get to what you need in your early game cards, you'll just outvalue them and prevent them from gaining the remaining of their lore. Now, it doesn't come up in this match or a second match I played against this deck, but this Kita that they just inked can actually be sometimes of a pain against the Robin Hood. So a lot of times what I'll do, and you see they drop triple Lilo, which at first was a little threatening. I was like, oh no. And I was like, is this how I lose? And you look at my board and it's, no, I'm actually doing just fine. I can drop a Pinocchio, exert one of them, take out a Lilo and a Pinocchio, gain lore off the Robin Hood, and you can see I've stayed up far ahead of them in lore for the whole match. Now, you can tell me down in the comments what you think about this play, but I opt to save my Mr. Smee instead of recycling the Pinocchio just because I valued the bodies a lot more, and the way that they play it, they would only have a Lilo, 2 Lilos, and the Pascal. I'm not really that worried about the Pascal because I can clear the rest of their board, but minus the characters they drop, so they'll only have 2 characters, which the Snake and the Robin Hood could deal with. And you can see here they didn't drop the blue in Bodyguard, which actually probably would have been worse for them just because the Robin Hood would be able to take it out, and then I would just use the Pinocchio to attack their second Lilo. And you can see we're still both tied up in lore. I have the board advantage. They're not going to gain that much more, and I'll just be able to take it away from here. But, yeah. And what you can notice is that in this matchup, another card that's really good that I didn't even need in this scenario was our rush characters. I play 4 Foxes, and I actually opt to tech in one more Rafiki, the 3-drop rush from set 1, just because the Rafiki actually can help in a lot of scenarios outside of this matchup as well, because what people expect a lot is if I don't have a character on board, I have no way to rush. And the Rafiki can be that kind of just rush jump scare that really gets you ahead. But you can see took away that game pretty easily. Next game, we're going into Emerald Steel again. This time we're going first. Now, a different way to think about the mulligan against Emerald Steel when going first is I'm still trying to prioritize my smashes and my Pinocchios, but I don't really need a one drop, ironically enough. Just because I have that tempo on that first turn, I just want to keep my high value cards, and really I can just because I leave an empty board, they'll drop their one drop and I can drop my two drop in response. And I'll always still be playing down my card in response and being the type of control deck just against this matchup. What I like about mid-range decks in general is that I can shift my game plan to whatever matchup I'm playing, so I feel like I have a better game plan and a better matchup spread into the whole field. You can see here they actually did a lot. They dropped a Bucky, shifted in a Diablo all turn 2, and either way, we're still roughly in the same amount of cards. They sing a Sudden Chill, so they're really getting me down in cards. And you see what I'm keeping is the Smash for the Ursula, the Maleficent for a different 3-drop, just in case I need it and to keep up on cards. And you can see I smashed the Diablo instead. And my last game plan is to just set up Castle Maleficent, just worried about card draw, because once I have cards and they can't get rid of it, I'm fine. You say they sudden chill me. You might disagree with this play, but I opt to keep the castle just in hopes that I get an inkable. I only play 11 uninkables in the whole deck, so chances of me getting an inkable are pretty high. And again, another interesting play is I choose to quest with the Smee. I don't think it's incorrect to not quest with the Smee, but I would actually value if they were to trade their Bucky into the Smee at that point. I drop the rabbit, gets me a card, and we're just cooking from here. They have 3 cards in hand. I have nothing. They can't discard any of my stuff, so they don't get any values on shift ins, and they'll struggle to take out the castle. It's probably this deck's biggest weakness is dealing with castle. So you can see they scoop it up really, really quickly once they realize that. Last match of the video, I'm going up against a mirror match, funnily enough. So mirror matches are interesting. You can see I actually choose to throw back. Zeus is almost always a throwback early on, and so is if I have 2 Pinocchios, but I actually opt to throw back the 3rd Pinocchio or the 2nd Pinocchio, just because I was looking at what my curve looked like. And hook into Smee, right now it's just Crab, but into Castle, and if I'm going first in the matchup, dropping an early Castle really puts your opponent in an awkward spot, because what they have to do is they have to actually play Crab turn 3 and a Fox turn 4 to try and out that castle if they don't have their hooks in play. So what I'll be trying to do is kind of force out their hooks if possible. If not, the castle doesn't need to come down, but the castle coming down and just prioritizing card draw is really effective. And you can see their game plan is they drop double hook, so they don't mind questing with one to force my hook to kill theirs, and then their hook can challenge into mine. So that way when my Smee goes into the hook, it's end up taking 2 damage in the follow-up, just for them to try and capitalize and slow down my early game. It's not a bad strategy, but you can see the weakness in doing it like this is that it loses out to the castle very well. And you can see even here, they went for a Fox turn 3 just to really try and stop me from questing with the Smee, but that sets them up for a really, really bad 4th turn into a castle. So castle was really, really strong here. And what you'll notice is in the follow-up turn, this is, looking back in hindsight, probably my one misplay of my play session, was they end on Maleficent hook. Now, I opt to drop a goat and ink this Fox, but I don't have card draw, and they still are up quite a few cards, and if they have 1 Fox here, they're actually able to take out my castle. So what I think might have been a better play was to hard cast the Zeus onto the hook, ironically enough, just to protect my castle, because even if they have a Fox, they wouldn't be able to take it out. And you can see they do have a Fox, but luckily for me is they don't opt to go Fox into castle for some reason. They just opt to go into my Crab, which I don't think was the correct play, and then they just still go hook into castle. So I'm not punished for it, but I definitely think I should have lost this game because of that. But since they didn't, I can just run away with the game. You can see I accidentally tried to ink the Zeus instead of the Maleficent, but it really is just a blowout game from this point. I don't drop the snake yet. I just move the rabbit to the castle because that'll get me draw instead. And this is what I was talking about earlier. With no characters in board, it's really hard to set up a rush play. But you can see I actually have a Rise of the Titans, which I was not expecting. I don't play any in my deck just because I find the crabs and all the bounce package plenty to deal with locations, and you have benches to deal with items, so I think Rise is a really bad card inside this deck. But you can see here, they're down to now 3 cards. I got a Rabbit Cycle, so I'm just very far ahead. What I actually think in this matchup is another key defining way to win is the rabbit plays. If you get rabbit bounce way more than your opponent, you'll just naturally win over the course of the game as long as you can keep their lore questing in check. You'll just have a really, really strong time. And you can see here, I got Pinocchio for their Pinocchio, I got Crab to bump my goat, and they'll just scoop it up from here. But yeah, that's it for the video. If you guys have any comments or questions, please leave a like, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.